Record. What's up, everybody? We are back, as always, with a new episode of the Kings of Tennessee podcast. Uh, it has been a great college football season so far, and I am gratefully joined by my other half, my co-host, Billy Derrick. Billy, how you doing this weekend, buddy?
I'm good, Chase. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. The season is rolling. We are at week 4 or week 5. Everything's kind of running together recently with how much football we're getting in. But I'm very excited to be here. We have a great slate. Uh, we have a lot. It's not as fun as last week of a slate. Uh, Sadly, it was just me last week, and I did a very quick episode, so that was fun. It's always an interesting time to see me run circles around myself in my head. So we're back to normal this week. So we have a big slate for you guys. Let's just jump right into it, Billy. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited to discuss not only last week, but this upcoming week as well. I'm gonna start with just give me your two teams from week 4 of college football season.
Chase, let's start up in the Big Ten. Ohio State stuns Notre Dame in the last few seconds, 17-14. This felt like an old-fashioned, 1980s, defensive battle, an unreal atmosphere in South Bend. Obviously I'm partial to Notre Dame. Been a Notre Dame fan my whole life, and that was brutal. I'll admit that was a heartbreaker. Both teams sort of woke up in the second half. It was a really clean game, no turnovers. I think these two teams deserve a berth in the playoff, at least at this point. I thought Hartman played well. I mean, you can't really critique him, but I thought Kyle McCord and those Ohio State receivers were just a little bit better. I mean, at the end on that 3rd and 19, you saw, I think it was Ibuka come up with that big grab, inside the 5. And McCord was so calm under pressure, man. I mean, he stepped up. Offensive line protected him, and his receivers. I don't know if there's a better receiving core in the country. I don't know if there's a better receiving core in the last 5 to 10 years in the country. I mean, Ibuka and Harrison are both top 10 picks in the NFL draft. A couple of good running backs, Henderson and Trainum. Of course, Trainum had the game-winning touchdown. But yeah, Ohio State got to go with the Buckeyes for my first team. And then secondly, I didn't want to go with another Big Ten team, but I have to, man. The Big Ten, we talk about the Pac-12 being the best conference. The Big Ten's been pretty dominant as well, at least at the top of that conference with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. I know Minnesota lost to Northwestern, which was crazy. I thought Minnesota was one of the better teams, and they go lose to Northwestern. But I'm going to go with Penn State. And I was really looking forward to seeing Iowa and how much, that offense had improved under Kirk Ferentz's son, I think. But they've got that contract, that says he's got to, what's the contract, Chase? Exactly. They've got to
He has to
average a certain amount of
average
points per game.
he has to average 24 points a game, and they are way behind the ball. So should be fun to see how that played out.
Well, and they had played better, right? I think McNamara looked better, and I was looking forward to seeing Iowa and how they did against Penn State. But the whiteout, man, that's tough to play in that atmosphere. What was the score of that game? I know it was a blowout. Don't even really need to mention the score, but
I think it was
Drew
30 to
Aller,
nothing.
30. Yeah, I mean, shutout. I mean, Iowa looked awful on offense. I saw their offensive chart, and it was like punt, 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 like interception, punt. I mean, it was awful. But Drew Aller's the real deal, man. 4 touchdowns. I think, he's a guy that not Ohio State, Penn State can rely on, late in games. And who knows, man, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. I don't really know. I know it's still early, but I can't really say convincingly who's the better team, the best team in the Big Ten right now. So, but yeah, Chase, I'm going to go with Ohio State as my number 1 team. I know we usually go with 4. I'm going to go with 2. Ohio State number 1, and then Penn State number 2. And then real quick here, breaking news: Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wegman looks to be out for the season. So just want to throw that out there. Looks like they'll be going with Max Johnson this week against Arkansas. So we can get into that a little bit, but yeah, I want to throw that out there. But a couple of Big Ten teams, Chase, Ohio State and Penn State.
Yeah, I saw the news right before we started recording for A&M. That's a tough break. Like you said, we can get into that a little bit later.
It's brutal.
Um, it's tough. I think he hurt his toe, so he's got to have surgery on his toe. From
Yeah,
what
it
I
was
understand.
a weight bearing bone injury. So he's gotta have about 3.5 months to try to get back from that. So, I guess he could go, you know, in the bowl potentially, but even then, that's still, I mean, 3 months away. He's got to be done. So, that's tough. He's young, but I think they like Max Johnson. So we'll see how the Aggies end up.
Going off of your two teams for one conference, I think I as well am going with two teams from the same conference. A conference that next year will be no more. A conference that has fumbled the bag on their teams. I'm talking about the one and only the Pac-12 conference. I'm going to talk about my first team being the Oregon Ducks. So Oregon, we talked about, taking on Colorado this past week. Yes, Travis Hunter was out. It doesn't make a difference. Travis Hunter can't play D line, O line, and secondary and wide receiver all at once. The Cinderella story, the hype train derailed in a 42-6 blowout, courtesy of the Oregon Ducks. Bo Nix, 28 to 33, 276, three tutties, and one pick. He's looked great so far this year. He cut his Heisman odds completely in half. I think he went from 2,100 to 1,000 uh, after this week.
Mm,
So he's absolutely trying to cover some ground in what is already a stacked Pac-12 quarterback conference.
hmm.
Um, Colorado. If you watch the pregame stuff, they were, I mean, disrespectful. They were, talking,
Yeah,
rubbing their feet all
that was
over the
awful.
Oregon O, and then to just get slaughtered like that, that's a
Mm,
tough look.
yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what I don't know who do they think they are. I mean, I know they're 3-0. They congrats, you beat Colorado State. They beat a good TCU team. I don't think Nebraska's very good. I mean, what they hadn't done anything to be acting like that. And I thought Dan Lanning put it well in the pregame speech. He said they're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins.
I love
And
that line.
I Lanning, I like Dan Lanning. Um, I don't think they really needed much motivation. I mean, Colorado's Colorado, but that was fun. It was kind of fun to see that beating. I like Dion. I like Colorado, but they're not there yet, right? To be able to compete with a team like that. I think USC probably slaughters them too.
I like Dion and I like Colorado, but I think it was just the hoopla and all this and that was so old. You storm the field against Nebraska and then to follow it up with storming the field against Colorado State. Like I understand you won one game last year, but you do not storm the field as a 20 plus point favorite. You
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. Like so Oregon, shout out to Oregon. I know I might come off as a hater here, but just ending all the hype, ending all the trash talk, and now we can get back to normal. And as you said, Colorado has USC this week, and I'm sure Caleb Williams is going to have a miraculous time against that secondary,
Yeah.
especially with Travis Hunter being out again. And then my second team from the Pac-12, and arguably the most dominant team in the country, the Washington Huskies. I know with the Colorado hype has taken all of the other news away from the Pac-12 as a whole, but Washington has just been on a tear. I mean, they've scored 45
Mm-hmm.
plus points in every game, and this is they're coming off a win against the Cal team. Yeah, Cal's not great, and Auburn isn't great, but Auburn and SEC team struggled with that Cal team, and it's 45-12 at half for Washington. And they have arguably they have the Heisman frontrunner at quarterback in Michael Penix, and two NFL wide receivers. And if you have that, that's a recipe for complete winning. A team that we'll be talking about in a couple weeks. They've got Oregon on the schedule. I think they've got USC coming down the pipeline as well. So we're about to start to see how good this Washington team is. But right now, I think you have them at 2 in your top 10. I have them at 3. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
very deserving of a top 5 spot, and even a top 3 spot. But you can argue they haven't played anybody, but Georgia has struggled against cupcakes. Ohio State struggled against cupcakes. Even Michigan has struggled against cupcakes. Washington has eaten the cupcake, icing and all, wrapper and everything. So they are enjoying their cupcake schedule. And it's about to get harder, like we've talked about with this Pac-12 conference. But as of right now, the most dominant team in the country hasn't struggled. They've looked very good, and Penix has looked incredible, just raising his draft stock. And I'm very excited to see where he ends up going in the NFL draft. But yeah, those are my two teams. So two Big Ten teams from Billy and two Pac-12 teams from me. It was a fun week 4, not as fun as week 3. Also, shout out Marcus Freeman for again having only 10 people on the field. I thought that was
Mm.
something. That's the worst way I've ever lost a bet in my life. And I've officially, for the moment, retired from that aspect of life for a couple weeks because it was rough.
We should have
Speaking,
known that was going to happen in Notre Dame, honestly.
yeah, I know, and it's me. Any team I ever put money on, it's just bound to happen. Like I was so excited when Hartman led them down the field, and then when Ohio State starts driving, I'm like, oh, not again. But speaking of sports picks and gambling, I think it's time to get into one of our favorite segments, Billy. Uh,
Let's do it.
Pick 'em. Let's update the folks on our pick 'em. Billy, little fun fact here. This is our first push week. This is our first week
Mm.
we've ever had a push. So that reflects in our record with Notre Dame being +3. That's our push. They lost by 3. So that's how that
Look at that
works.
winning record from Chase.
Yeah, I had a way better week than I expected. So Billy right now sits at 35, 37, and 1, 2 and 3 locks of the week, and I sit 33, 32 and 1, also 2 and 3 in the LOWs. We both had Ole Miss +6.5. Should have known not to bet Kiffin in a big game. I have also noted that lately. But Billy, we have a fun slate this week. Let's just jump straight into it. Let's start off with Florida going into Kentucky. This line kind of surprised me. Kentucky favored by 1 point at home with the over/under of 44. Billy, what are you thinking when it comes to this kind of toss-up?
Yeah, I mean, I love this matchup. There's a lot. I think this week might even be better than last week in terms of the whole. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of good games. There may not be that huge splash of a game, but there's a lot of really good games that I think could get really spicy with some really good atmospheres. And this is one of them. I mean, Florida, Kentucky, the last 4 or 5 years has always been a fun matchup, no matter whether it's in Gainesville or Lexington. I thought it was hilarious. Mark Stoops said he was asked about whether or not he's worried about Kentucky fans getting up and being rowdy enough for an 11 a.m. kickoff. He said, I have plenty of faith in the people of Kentucky to get up and pound some beers early in the morning. So I thought that was hilarious, and I think they will, man. I know it's 11 a.m. They wish it was at night. That this game usually is at night. So I think this not being at night, makes it a little bit more manageable for Florida. But I love Kentucky in this matchup. Florida struggles against Kentucky for whatever reason. Now Kentucky's been good. I mean, Kentucky, they haven't been roadkill, but Florida has had the talent to beat them. They just haven't beat them. And I think Kentucky broke the streak a couple of years ago in Gainesville. I forget how long that streak was, but Kentucky, I like them a lot. I was at the Vanderbilt Kentucky game this past weekend, and I like Cleary. I think he could have played better. I don't think he's played to his full potential. They got Ray Davis. They got 3 really good receivers. They got a couple of good tight ends they like to go to, and their defense is active. And they had a guy Hairston. Their DB had a couple of pick sixes. So I like Kentucky. I mean, I like Florida though too. So I think it's gonna be a really really tight game. I think it's gonna be a fun game. And Chase, give me Kentucky to win it outright and obviously cover that -1. Yeah, I'll go. It's hard to go under 44. I'm going to go over barely. I think it'll be low scoring though. But yeah, give me Kentucky -1 and the over just barely 44.
I'm gonna follow you with Kentucky because I think Kentucky's offense has not been the greatest this season. I think the O-line has kind of struggled. They don't really have a true identity. But I like Nick Leary. I've always been a fan of Nick Leary. And
Devin.
Devin Leary. Yeah, Devin. I'm
There
thinking of
you
the Florida State tight end from back in the
go.
day. Big fan of Devin Leary. And we don't want to talk about Sunbelt Billy. So give me Kentucky -1. I'm gonna go under because I think these are both two struggling offenses and two not awful defenses. So give me the under of 44 on this one. But I think it's gonna be a good game. I think it's a great start to the SEC slate this weekend. Our next game, I have a little typo, Billy, in the outline. It's supposed to be Texas at Kansas. Kansas at home is a 16.5 point underdog. The over under right now set at 62.5. I'll start off. I will say give me Kansas plus 16.5. I think they're a very solid team. I think Texas is really good. But that's a big number. That's a very big number for a pretty solid Kansas team with a great quarterback in Jalen Daniels. I think he's a very great talent coming up for this next draft. Um, it's at home. Like that's hard to give a undefeated ranked home team almost 17 points. So give me a 16.5, and I'm gonna go over. I think this is gonna be a shootout. I think we're gonna see 40-40, both teams in the 40s, if not very close to both teams in the 40s. So that's my pick for this game. Billy, your pick for Texas at Kansas.
Oh man, this is tough. I feel like anytime it's obvious, like you feel like it's obvious, it shouldn't be, and it's not. Like that, those are the ones I lose. Like the gut feelings that I have, I usually lose those. Um, so give me Texas, man. I need to start taking a lead here, Chase, on you. I need to get over 500 to start. I've been so mid. Give me the Longhorns. I love what they're doing. I think Quinn Ewers is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think there'll be a lot of points in this one. I like Kansas. I like Jaden Daniels, or Jalen Daniels, their quarterback, and I like Lance Leopold. I just like Texas a lot more. And 16.5 is a lot, but that's just 2 touchdowns and a field goal. So I think, maybe Kansas scores a garbage touchdown to get a backdoor cover, and you're right. But I think this could get a little ugly. I like Texas's athletes over Kansas. Give me the Longhorns, Chase. And then, yeah, I'll go over. I'll go over 62.5.
Okay, over 62.5. I think we both agree. Big 12 football always lean toward the over because it's going to be a shootout between two Big 12 teams. Speaking of potential shootouts, LSU going on the road to an Ole Miss team coming off of a loss against Alabama. Ole Miss right now is a 2.5 point underdog. The over under set at 67, which is ridiculous for an SEC team
Mm.
not involving Tennessee or another high pace offense. Ole Miss, and these are two high pace offense, but 67 is a really big, really big point total. So Billy, what are you looking at in terms of LSU and Ole Miss this weekend?
Man, I think it should be big, but that is really big. Um, I like both offenses a lot. Something has to give. I think Dart and Daniels are probably the top 2 quarterbacks in the league right now. I think you could throw Rattler in there, but Ole Miss is still a good team, and they've got to win one of these big ones eventually. I mean, Lane Kiffin really hasn't won a big game in his entire tenure at Ole Miss. I mean, you could say that game in Knoxville a couple of years ago in Heupel's first season, but I mean, that was a pretty average Tennessee team. A team that was recovering from the Jeremy Pruitt era. And then other than that, I mean, it's hard to think about the big games Kiffin has won. So maybe it gives. I like LSU in this one though. I think LSU is a playoff type team. I think they're getting better. I think they're getting better defensively. I know they struggled last week with Arkansas, but that's a rivalry game. Battle for the Golden Boot. It's always close. Give me LSU plus or -2.5 to win and cover. I just think Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are in a spot where, I mean, you got to play Bama and LSU back-to-back weeks. That's tough mentally on those players. Give me LSU -2.5 and over 67. I think Daniels has a huge day. I think Dart is a big day also, but I think this could be, Chase, something like a 48-41, something like 45-38, something crazy like that, where it might be the best game of the day, but Ole Miss fans come away disappointed. Give me LSU minus 2.5 over 67.
I am going to follow you on both of these and take LSU minus 2.5. I don't think Kiffin wins big games. I love Lane Kiffin. I'm in the minority as a Tennessee fan, but that's my guy always and forever. So LSU minus 2.5. They haven't won big games. Coming off of an Alabama loss, you would think maybe they're a little bit more motivated, but it's really tough when you're playing another good team. LSU struggled
Yeah.
last week against Arkansas at home. But yeah, give me LSU minus 2.5 and over 67. Both teams are going to score loads of points, and it's going to be a very fun game. Speaking of very fun games, college game day game.
Mm,
Notre Dame going into Duke. First time Duke's ever hosted college game day. Duke at home as a 5.5 point dog with the over under right now set at 52. I'm going to start out here. I love Sammy Hartman, Sammy Heisman. Yeah, it's so tough for his Heisman odds to get beat by Ohio State. If he won that game, we're looking at probably the favorite right now. I still
yeah.
think he has a shot. But give me Notre Dame minus 5.5. I like Duke. I like what Duke's done. I like Mike Elko. Elko's been great for this team, but it's tough. 5.5 with a great offense. I think Duke's going to be competitive. It's not going to be a blowout, but it's a touchdown type game. I see Notre Dame winning no more than 10, but 5.5 easy. And I'm actually going to go under 52.
Okay, Chase, I'm sick of betting with my heart. Give me the Duke Blue Devils. I like them a lot. A lot of this is just kind of ticky tack stuff for me, but I don't think they win. But 5.5, I mean, that's a lot of respect to Duke from Vegas. And I think there's some bettors that are probably nervous Duke does cover that. Um, yeah, I like the under two in this one, but give me Duke. I mean, I could see Notre Dame maybe winning by 4 or by 3. Duke scores a late touchdown. You get the onside situation. They don't get it. Um, give me the Blue Devils plus 5.5 at home. They're going to play well. I mean, they're going to play well, man. This is college game day in Durham. They're going to play well. I don't think they win. I think they cover, though. Good teams win, but great teams cover. Give me the Duke Blue Devils to cover in Durham. I'll also go under there.
That is going to be a fun game for Duke Blue Devil
Mm-hmm.
fans who are going to enjoy a college game day. Speaking of fans enjoying things, oh boy, how long I have waited for this funeral. I've ordered flowers. We're dressed in black, of course. I'm talking about revenge season all day long. Tennessee, South Carolina, under the lights at Neyland, dark mode, blackout. I'm just gonna go ahead and say this real quick. We've got our shovels. The funeral arrangements are planned. Uh, Tennessee minus 12.5 at home. At 6:30 kickoff time. Tennessee minus 12.5 in the over. That's all I'm gonna say because next week we're going to be celebrating the miraculous life that is Shane Beamer because he's going to be done. South Carolina's done. Tennessee minus 12.5 over 63.5. Good luck. RIP. Go Vols.
Yeah, I thought about this one for a while, and I was like, man, Rattler, he'll keep Carolina in it. But Chase, I think this one could get out of hand. Um, I like Tennessee in their offense when Milton is protected, right? And I don't know if Cooper Mays is going to be back. I doubt it. I just think emotionally, mentally, the crowd's going to be fired up. It's going to be tough for Carolina. Tennessee's going to heat him up. They're going to heat him up defensively. I like Tennessee to cover just barely. I think they win probably by a couple of touchdowns, maybe a little bit more. I don't love this pick, but I'm taking it because I feel it. I'm going to go. Let's go under 63.5. Screw it. Under 63.5. That's a lot for a South Carolina team that I think they could be held to a low scoring point total by Tennessee. And Tennessee's offense hasn't been as good as I think a lot of people think. But yeah, give me the Vols minus 12.5 and under.
Struggles have been real offensively, but the funeral. I mean, it's a get back season. It's a get back game. Another one of our teams leading off with my team. Now it's time for your team, a team that has yet to cover the spread this season. The only team in college football who's not covered a spread. Missouri coming at home against Vanderbilt. Coming into Vanderbilt. Uh, Billy, I'm gonna give you my pick quickly, real quick. That's a double entendre. That's funny. Vandy covers the spread for the first time this year. The streak's over. Give me Vandy 13.5 and give me the over 54.5.
Yeah, Vandy's just been bad, Chase. I mean, there's no other way to say it. The turnovers have absolutely killed this team. They welcome a Missouri team led by Brady Cook and Luther Burden. One of the more high-powered offenses in the league right now. I mean, but the thing about Missouri is they've been in some tight games. I mean, they struggled with Middle. They only beat Middle 23-19. They eked out a win over Memphis last week in St. Louis. So I think Vanderbilt, I think they can compete in this game. I think they can also win this game. It's hard to see them winning, actually putting it all together. It doesn't look like Swan's going to go. I would expect Ken Seals to start for Vanderbilt on Saturday. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know yet. But we haven't seen this team play a clean game yet. If they can play a clean game, I think they can compete in this game, potentially win it. I'm not ready to say they win it, but I think they easily cover. It's a trap game for Missouri. They got LSU at home next week. Big game for them. They'll be ready for that. But give me Vandy to cover. Again, I hate this pick. I hate it so much. But just give me Vandy somehow, some way. They'll cover. They're bound to play a little bit better. I mean, my goodness, they've had 9 turnovers in the last 3 games, and 4 of those turnovers have been returned for touchdowns. I mean, that can't continue, and I don't think it will. I think Seals is a veteran guy who will take care of the football. Whether Vandy can win it, I don't know, but I think they'll cover the 13.5. I think it is right, and I give me the over. Vandy's overs have hit pretty often. They've given up a lot of points, but they've also scored their fair share of points. So give me the over in that one and Vandy to cover.
Billy, what is your lock of the week for week number 5?
Lock of the week. This was hard. Lock of the week. LSU minus 2.5 at Ole Miss. Lock of the week.
I
And
like
I
it.
hate it. I hate it, but I got to start doing some things unconventionally here. LSU minus 2.5, lock it in. LSU is the better team. They're the more physical team, and Lane Kiffin chokes in big games. Give me the Tigers.
Speaking of unconventional, for the first time ever, for both of us, my lock of the week is going to be an over. Tennessee, South Carolina, over 63.5, lock of the week. I think Tennessee secondary is awful, and if the D-line doesn't get any pressure against Rattler, he's going to have a lot of time to pick that secondary apart. In turn, I think our offense is getting back to what it used to be from last year. It's not going to be the same ever with this current roster, but they can get close. Give me over 63.5. I think it's a 40-20 game, and I think they cover barely the over, but that's my lock of the week, over 63.5 for South Carolina and Tennessee. Guys, thank you all for listening and joining in. There's a Twitter page coming today. There's a Facebook page coming today. So check that out along with our YouTube page. And we'll be back next week. Thank you guys so much. And y'all have fun and be safe.